in testamentum tuum, et animas paperum tuorum, dedere linguas in fine, exulget Domine, et iudica causam tuum, et ne oblibis caris voces querentium te. Ut quid Deus reponesti in fine, iratus est furor tuum, super oves pasque tuum. Gloria Patri et Filio et Spiritui Sancto, sic ut erat in principio et nunc et semper, et in saecula saeculorum. Amen. Respice Domine in testamentum tuum, et animas paperum tuorum, nedere linguas in fine, exulget Domine, et iudica causam tuum, et de omnibus caris voces querentium te. Has a promise here which has been claimed by all the prayer groups of the years and centuries, where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, there I am in the midst of them. And also many times has this promise that accompanies this been claimed, that where they agree, when they ask the Father something in his name, then he will obtain it. It will be granted to them. The prayer group atmosphere has an intensity of its own, and there is a sincerity there which is difficult to fabricate. The B side is that also things can go hugely wrong, because much depends on those present and their human and spiritual balance and maturity. The other mode is the liturgical mode, and of course one can claim there also the Lord's promise. He is truly there when the Church is praying, and hence in the specifically monastic structure we have 2 choirs facing each other, and the Lord is felt to be in the midst. And when there is incense taking place, the Lord of course is honoured first, but then there is this honouring also of Christ present in both choirs. They too are incensed at Vespers and eventually at other celebrations. Now, the question then of the way in which we put in evidence the fact that truly in choir, in liturgy, we are addressing a presence together and are enjoying a presence together is something that if we're not careful we can bypass, because one can get into automatic pilot. One becomes as it were, used to celebrating, and one is carried by the railway lines along something which has always functioned. Now, there is that risk of not entering into the living contact, but operating precisely in this automatic mode. Already, according to authors, for instance, in the French Benedictine sphere, the very fact of exercising the virtue of religion in creating beauty objectively for the Lord by material correctness, in chant and gestuality, is honouring the Creator, because we are returning his rights to him externally and socially, publicly, on behalf of creation and of the Church. But then this other bit has to be there too, if it is to be total. And that's the bit I would like to look at. There is the risk of passing all through our liturgical life in this absence of contact. Not necessarily, but it can happen. The whole way in which we address our God and have a living contact with him is in some way a reproduction on the divine of what happens on the human with regard to our contact and intimacy with each other. That as the body has its language and is felt to express something living when it is spontaneous and expressing something which is there, so too with our God it should be the case that this should be the natural outflowing. And there are cultures in which this happens more readily. In India, there is a natural spontaneity, in Africa too, and then in the East one sees how liturgy has outworked itself in the realm of the way in which they already by nature are expressive. Profound bows, they will touch the ground, and so on. In the West we can be a bit cerebral, we can just be in the mind, and we can deprive ourselves of some of the fullness of our beauty and of our praise, and the way in which, for instance, things have been chipped away from the majesty of God in concrete terms, like incense, the number of altar boys, the number of candles, the amount of music. Contenting ourselves with the word and only the word is a reflection of the way in which we are unaware of the damage that we can cause ourselves by depriving ourselves of experience and wanting to be purely mind. We are not only mind, we are mind, body and spirit, which needs to be elevated and to be touched and healed and indeed injected with something powerful. And music and even touching the senses with beautiful incense and all that can go into creating an atmosphere do touch the being in all its profound level. We are in need of this experience at least sometimes in our life. Now, with that in mind, I would like to come into one point which is very much linked with the first reading. We have in Ezekiel the vision of the glory of the Lord departing. There is a one-word expression in Hebrew itself which sums it all up. Ichavod. Now, chavod, that root there is actually weight, but it means glory, because everything in Hebrew is very concrete to start off with. And in that form, it is the equivalent of our past tense of it was gloried. In other words, the glory now was no more, and there is a cessation of the Lord's glory. Now, if one looks at what has happened in our generation, there has been something of that in our Western experience. Ichavod. We have been keen on taking away all that is not mind. And also all that is not bare minimum, time. As outside there in the world we are time efficient, so we have become very time efficient at the altar. Woe betide a celebrant who goes over the bare minimum nowadays. People actually even have the discourtesy towards Almighty God to get up and go out because they have more important things to do, e.g. after Holy Communion. It's a misunderstanding of what's actually happening at Holy Communion, and one can actually question whether they are really communing if it is being so minimalized. Therefore, I would come into one specific question. Is there room to ask whether God would be asking for more points on earth where he can have that chavod, that glory, which by his, even in the Old Testament, which is our pedagogy, is seen to be his. Nothing was spared in that temple worship, which is only the forerunner and shadow of what we have. Nothing. And even the details were given. We think we can make abstraction of everything again, but the mind. Well, we have another thing coming. And if we deprive ourselves of the fullness of celebration, we are people who only have, on a weekly basis, what they have throughout their life. More work, more haste, more dirtiness, more shallowness, more of the material, and only a part of our being is served. We heal ourselves in glorifying our King as our King wishes, and if we do, then he, I am sure, will zoom in and bless and multiply and fill. We have all kinds of wonderful human means of filling our churches, and with what do we fill them? Noise and clapping, man and his attention seeking. If we just disappear and give God a place, I am sure that from that place God will reign and will himself think of doing the evangelization, the healing and the praise. Tibi gloria Deo Patri et Filio, cum Sancto Spiritu, in saecula saeculorum. Amen.